if you go down to the woods today.
Like a little hobgoblin, it's like, oh, leaves.
So I received a message on a Wednesday evening, and it was from my friend Naomi, and she had her friend Steph down, who you can see on the video now, and she said, "What are you doing Thursday morning?" And I said, "Well, nothing at the moment." And she said, "Do you want to shoot?" I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." So last minute, not many clothes to choose from because Steph was obviously just visiting, and they turned up fashionably late, as girls do. So we cracked on very, very quickly, so we could get the ball rolling and such. No real ideas. The girls turned up in clothes that I didn't really know what they were going to bring, and the light unfortunately had gone from a nice sunny morning to overcast, kind of threatening to rain. Kind of feel, you can see it in the background in there, there was no sunshine really at all. Because I'd rushed, I'd actually taken out the batteries out of my flash gun, so we had no lighting either, even though the flash gun had been put in, wireless triggers as well. So major boo-boo on my part. That's the first time in God knows how many years that's ever happened. So yeah, so we made do. As you can see, everything was lit well anyway. Even though the light was rubbish, it was well diffused, so we had a flat light, but actually it wasn't too unflattering as such, so it still worked, and there's no harsh shadows at all, so that kind of helps as well. So it's not all bad, but anyway, we made do, carried on shooting. Like I say, we had no ideas at the time. I had a few in my head where we could go next, and you'll see that shortly. That turned out rather well, and then we moved to a different place. The woodland shoot, which you saw Steph in the beginning picking up leaves, turned out well, but the lack of light in there was kind of annoying. But like I say, we still carried on shooting, just for fun anyway. It was just for the name, in the name of art and photography really. So anyway, keep watching and you'll see some better shots on their way as they progress. So we started down on the main part of the beach, but it was a little bit limited and the tide had come in. So I knew of these beach huts that have been here for many years, and we used to shelter them if it was chucking down rain and stuff when we were younger. But it's always been painted colours, and it always looks quite cool, and it's very photogenic, and it's south facing, so you always get really good light in there. So as you can see here, these photos, there's a couple of shots here, the only two I've really edited in the whole of the video here. Just match the dress colour to the wall, and also as a black and white sort of duplicate shot. In a minute you'll see. Everything else is literally just adjustment level, level adjustments, other than that, and a crop or whatever, and obviously a black and white conversion. So everything else is pretty much untouched. So we started about jumping around, and because the colours are quite vibrant, and also the everything's a bit sort of rustic, so you've got a little bit of rust around the outside edges. Steph was wearing a kind of dress that kind of reminded me of sort of the 60s, I guess, if you can understand that, and it just kind of looked cool, the boots and everything, the long hair flowing around. So I thought, you know what, we could start jumping around a bit, and so she started leaping around like this. This really is quite a cool shot because the door behind us is really light. It almost backlights her, so that works quite well. I have boosted the purples there just to give it a bit more of a punch, and as you can see here, this is one of the shots. I just mirrored it just for a bit of fun. But just try it, see what it looks like. Let's try it again, and also aim at me a little bit, so turn your body slightly to me. That's it. Yeah, even come diagonally is fine. Yeah. Right, ready? So then just launch. Yeah, perfect. So we took a few test shots here, and having the A7R Mark IV with its 10 frames per second, didn't miss anything. It was great, absolutely fine. Got many shots. The only thing I had to do was get her to kick her left leg up higher. As you can see, it's not really quite high enough, but on the Nix photo you'll see it was pretty much perfect. Just got her to kick it a little bit higher up in the air, and it just worked really nicely. Just before she hit the wall. But that worked really nicely. And then Naomi jumped in, just doing some different shots. We're trying not to be the same because it's very easy just to do exactly the same photos. And there's different colours here we could use. You can see the cracks in the walls. It's all quite interesting. The rust marks on the concrete. and you know, we just saw sort of the different colours. But as you can see, the light coming in was actually quite nice, and it just worked really well. And you can see the rust marks around on the doors there and everything. So generally, it just worked. Considering it wasn't sunny, we were really lucky. Some of these I prefer in black and white, even though that's nice in the colour there. As you desaturate it, actually it's quite cool, partly coloured. Into black and white, looks a bit more contrasty. And then did some shots together, looking straight down the sort of seafront now using these steps. It worked quite nicely. And in black and white, personally, I think just because the clouds are a little bit moody, and the pattern on the dress and Naomi's tattoos and stuff like that kind of all came out a little bit better. It just kind of worked really. So this is the 35mm Samyang, works really nicely. And same as this one's here, these are the 35mm. Wide open at f1.4, as you can see the lovely soft foreground, and then it just softens off into the background. Personally I think black and white's best, but then the rust colours and everything appear in shot when it's in colour. Same as this shot here of Steph. Just works really nicely. I think black and white is just a bit more, I'd say aggressive, but it just makes it a bit more moody and a bit more sort of powerful. Kind of takes you back to that old era of film, back in the 60s kind of feel. So worked quite nicely. Even in video I quite like this. I just cranked up the contrast slightly just to give her boots a bit of darkness in her hair, just to bring it out, because it was quite, even though there was no sunshine, the sort of horizon and everything was quite well backlit. So and then just to mess around with these ones here, just a little bit of level adjustments on the shadowing and stuff like that worked quite nicely. And she's not actually that heavy, it was already bent, so but it kind of worked quite nicely because it wasn't perfect. There was plenty along there just dead straight, and I thought that looks really boring, so having a bent one, you know, the railing there, it worked really quite well. It was quite windy, not too windy, but it was just a nice sort of 10-12 mile an hour breeze, which does enough to blow hair around, which is great, and it's what you know, really helps you get some interesting shots.
Need some more light, there we go. Looks good though, the hair.
Well, let's sort out the coat. Yeah, you do get your hair tangled in it.
Fluffy waffy.
So as you can see, it was pretty dull in the woodland there. So I actually ended up cranking the A7R Mark IV up to ISO 400, then 800. I actually ended up at 1600 ISO, and a couple of times I was up to ISO 2000. It just wasn't much light in there, it was just very dull. Lots of leaf cover still, but it still worked, and the pictures are still pretty clean, so pretty happy with that result.
Up on it, or? That's funny.
Make it near like straddle it. So graceful. Okay, you ready? Make sure you're stable and I'm going to use your shoulders. Wait. Oh. Yeah, that's good. It's just
Oh, it's funny. Oh, dogs. That's you see what's moving around behind you is hilarious.
I have less arms than you, okay. Right.
So the B-roll's going to be hilarious.
Huh?
So the B-roll video's going to be hilarious.
So I can see the photos are turning out okay. There's a nice little sort of hole in the trees there that the light was casting through, which looked really good. And as you can see, a shot here worked quite nicely. A little bit of editing on this one just to bring out the rays of light, because the sun did actually come out very slightly. This one of Naomi, just on the tree there, it was actually a massive branch that had broken off, and that's why when the girls were on it, it was moving around. And it still worked quite well. In black and white, I think these really do work best in black and white. Still look great in colour, but I think the jeans with the texture, the tree bark and the leaves and everything in the background just helps it, just brings out the detail and everything. We then moved back to the main path, which is just sort of near where we park the cars, and the drop off, this is basically a straight path, probably about 200 metres long through the woods, and it just worked quite nicely. We grabbed a few, well, as you saw right at the beginning of the video, Steph went off into the woods to pick up some big dry leaves which she found, and they wanted to do some sort of falling leaves shot, and laying down on the ground. So I'm laying down on the ground, so 135 Gmaster wide open, and just got a lovely soft background. And because those trees just taper off into the distance, you can see the light coming through the back of the woods there, every now and again. But worked really nicely. Super soft background, and you can see the light coming through the trees right at the end of, that's a couple of 100 meters away maybe. And yeah, so we got the falling leaf shots, both for the girls. I know we don't do the same shots too often, but it kind of worked, and they both had slightly different expressions on their face, which worked well, and just a bit of fun. It's not really turned autumn yet, so there's a few leaves coming off, but we need some nice frosts just to get those colours and those leaves coming off, so we can actually do one of these properly, with a lot more leaves flying around and stuff, which could be quite cool. So I kind of call this a bit of a practice, but it still worked quite nicely, and it was well worth doing. Basically now Naomi had to go, so basically I followed them back to Naomi's place, and Steph grabbed her stuff. We then jumped in the car and we headed back towards hers. On the way we stopped and did one more little bit of a shoot before I dropped her off, and it turned out to be quite eventful. She was totally up for it, and it was well worth it. You'll see the shots in a second. So I've shot in this area before many times, and depending on the time of year it can be completely different in photographic terms, but because we only had a short period of time and it was on the way, we kind of stopped here and we thought, okay, we can utilise this old building and a bit of woodland and whatever. Down on the ground was it was quite muddy, so I thought, wonder if she's up for being a little bit of experiment with a bit of mud, stuff like that. It wasn't cold at all. We were talking 16 to 18 degrees Celsius, so it was still quite pleasant. So we did a few shots as was, and then I sort of just said, it's up to you. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you do want to do it, I've kind of got an idea. And she went, what's the idea? And I said, fancy rolling around in a bit of mud? And she went, yeah, stuff it. So really impressed by her attitude to trying things and doing things. Really good. But these photos I absolutely love. That one especially, with the sort of roll neck pulled up over her face. She's just got the eyes. It's just literally about the eyes. So that shot works really nicely. Looking through this old building here, this building's been here for a long time. It's covered in moss that's grown over the rust and everything. There used to be other buildings there, but unfortunately they took them down because it was really useful for doing shoots and stuff. Unfortunately they must have become dangerous or whatever, and unfortunately they got taken down. But anyway, you'll see as now we go into the muddy shots. But I love the textures and stuff in this shot. Works really nicely. The old wood and the like I say, the old corrugated iron.
So just tell the camera what you're actually just about to do.
So I'm about to get muddy and probably lay face down in this actually.
Don't put your face in it.
Just gonna throw myself in. Oh my god. Okay.
This is what you call the most amazing model ever. Is it cold?
It's very cold. I'm going to try and lie in it because it's actually muddy. Oh, that's cold. Oh my god.
Oh, that's bloody amazing actually, the way it's hardly touched you.
Oh my god, it stinks. It literally stinks.
So as you can see, the shots were totally worth it. Steph's absolutely brilliant. She just persevered. She absolutely just, as she said, she actually loved doing it, even though the mud stank, and it was just, it just worked, and we were both really happy with the results. Luckily, I was keeping the boot of the car. In fact, I've got to buy a new one because she kind of stole it, and I say that. She kept the massive fleece that I've got in the boot of the car. It's like a 3 metre by 3 metre sort of fleece, so she used that as a towel, and she's kept that, so I just got to buy another one. But these shots really work. Her facial expressions, the fact she's covered in mud. We ripped up the top a little bit. I mean, I buy clothes every now and again for shoots that are £3 a go, you know, something like that for a top, that doesn't matter. I don't expect a model to rip up clothing of their own. I mean, some have in the past, but you know, I'd happily just spend a few pounds here or there, go to TK Maxx or something like I've done with Esther in the past, and just literally ruin some clothing just for the sake of doing some amazing shots like this. So really pleased with the shooting, considering it was the night before kind of decision, and the fact that we didn't know what we were going to be doing the next day, with no ideas of outfits until the morning when they decided what they were going to bring. Obviously Steph didn't have much with her anyway, and the weather was not all that amazing as well, so it turned out really well. Going to be shooting with Steph again, Naomi again as well. I'm just really pleased with how the day went. She really loved it. Naomi loved some of the shots, especially one of the smiley ones, which is, I never liked the smiley pictures of myself, and I got one, so really pleased on that part. And that's what it's about, you know. A lot of the time it's about the art, yes, I mean, capturing shots that people just go wow, but it's also about, you know, having the models go wow themselves, and the fact that they love the photos that you've created is awesome, you know, and that's the whole part of the job, you know, at the end of the day. Anyway guys, please subscribe, please click the notification bell, and don't forget to ask questions, blah blah blah, as usual, and I'll see you soon.